All right. So, I think that everything that I write, it's a very creative way or metaphoric way of saying about my own life, my own perspective, the way I see my past, the way I look back to my life, the way I see the present, the way I see the people around me. But I don't want to be explicit. I don't want to be talking about my life. I want to create a story that I can involve people. I can bring people so people connect to that as if it was their own lives, right? I started to do this, and every album that I write, I kind of get better. What I mean is, I improve this metaphoric way. I improve how to say it. Okay. I think that every album that I wrote is an extension of the previous one, or an extension, a development of all the previous ones, right? So, Holy Land was an extension of Angels Cry. I could explain better about my life. I could explain where were we coming. We come from Brazil with the colonizations from the European people. We mix our music with African rhythms, and so I wanted to tell a story to explain that. And that story was the discovery of Brazil, discovery of America, but also a creative, fictional story about a ship that never made it. Like many ships before the colonization of Brazil, they tried to discover America, but they failed. So Carolina the Fourth would be the story of one of these ships that failed. All right. Rebirth is an extension of what came before, and then the Temple of Shadows is an extension of what came previously, and then Omni, of course, is a big extension of a long story, many records, many stories that we lived. It connects, Omni connects to Temple of Shadows more indirectly, right? It was not intentionally, but I have lots of thinkings that they're still here in my head. I always come here inside, I try to get into my unconscious mind, and I get these lines, I get these ideas. So the source is always the same. It changes as long as I live my life, right? I started to write Omni 6 years ago, okay? It wasn't, in the beginning, it was not supposed to be a record. It wasn't supposed to be a record concept. I thought it would be a story for a book. I never had the time to develop the story for the book. And also I don't have the skills for writing an actual book. I never did it. But I know how to write lyrics. I know how to structure the lines, how to combine with the melodies, how to make these different parts sound specific, particular. So when we were talking about the new record, Omni, I really wanted to have a strong idea, especially because we didn't have Kiko, and after all these many lineup changes, it's very hard to convince people that we're still creative, that we're still loving music, that we still have passion, and that we still are able to do it. So I wanted a very strong idea, so that then I thought, okay, I'll bring Omni, my special idea for a book, and I will write lyrics about it. They connect with Temple of Shadows because I've always wanted to extend the Temple of Shadows to a bigger story where a time traveler would be the shadow hunter. Okay, so this time traveler, he would be there in Holy Land during the discoveries, the big sailings, as you say, the big conquering of the world. So this time traveler, he is kind of the same guy, just witnessing different moments in human history. In that sense, I can talk a little bit about how you call it, anthropology, or how the human, how mankind has behaved, has acted differently through times, but also just the same. I like to compare that. I like to read about it. I like to wonder in my head about us as humans, how we evolve, why we evolve so much on handling technology, for instance, how we don't evolve at all many times on how to relate with people. That kind of thinking, that kind of wondering is what made me write that story. But I had to be different. I could not tell, I didn't want to tell a story in a space-time, like find a place in time to tell the same story that I told in the Temple of Shadows. And also, I've changed my mind a lot. I'm not the same person that wrote the Temple of Shadows. I'm not the same person that wrote Rebirth. I'm not the same person that was there writing Holy Land. Right? Okay. So as I was saying, it connects to the Temple of Shadows because few characters, they are the same, like the Shadow Hunter and the Time Traveler. They're kind of the same guys, but they're other characters, other time travelers, and they're having other stories. But I just don't have time to develop all the stories, to write lyrics about all the stories that come to my head. Okay, next question. All right, good question. When we created Omni, we had a chance to stay, to interact a lot as friends, as in the personal side. And the greatest point was that Fabio is always a very cool, gentle, calm person. And I am very excited all the time. I have lots of anxiety, and especially when I'm creating, I get all excited, as I said. So he's always calm and always very creative. The good points: he doesn't play any instrument, so when he writes music, he's very intuitive, and he brings out lots of melodies. And the good thing is that the character of the melodies that he's bringing, it's totally different than everything that is being done in Angra before. The kinds of melodies that he brings out, it's different than Edu's kind of melodies, or Andre or mine. So it was very nice to work with these new sounds, and very spontaneous, and also endless. That's why we call him the wizard, the mago, because he's bringing tricks from his sleeves all the time, And that was the good thing of working with Fabio. He was good in the personal side, and he's very creative and intuitive on bringing up nice melodies. Well, good question too. I'd love to. It was fun to re-record Zito with this new lineup, because it's good for us as a band to compare the different sounds. Like, okay, Zito was a song done in the past, and we had a specific sound back there. The sounds from the vocals, from Andre, the sounds from the guitars, the sounds from the band. And how would it sound today, not only live, but if we sit down to really record it? And the fans also like it. They like to compare, you know? They always like to compare. And I wish when we had a chance to tour with the Holy Land, we played the whole album with this lineup, with Marcelo, Fabio, Bruno, Felipe, and me. We played the whole Holy Land album. We had a chance to experiment that. That was a very important point for us, because I could hear, I also could compare what was Angra in the past, what is Angra now, what is our best, what are the best songs from Holy Land on this lineup. Songs like The Shaman, songs like Silence and Distance, they sounded very, very good. Songs like Zito, I mean, many of the songs from Holy Land, they sounded very, very good on this lineup. And I could kind of picture where to go with Omni. What should we bring from the past on this lineup? And what should be the fresh ideas, the new ideas that we should add into the new record Omni. So it was very important. I think that we should do it more often. I think we should do it many times in the future. It will be very different from the set list in Europe, but it will be very similar to the set list in the US, because this is the most recent stuff that we've been playing. As I said, we're playing the songs that really sound very good with this lineup, and except that the Japanese crowd, they usually like a lot the speed songs, the fast songs. So we are adding, but there in America, not so much. We tried a few songs, but they seen a lot of new fans coming to the shows, and they like our proggy side, progressive side. So we basically will have the structure of what we had in America, except that we were going to add few fast songs.